Loud. Okay, great. It is 5:18 p.m. And we'll call the meeting of the Dover Municipal Water Task Force to order. Alan, you're all set. You can hear us, right? From a minutes.
I can hear everybody.
I approve the minutes of the last meeting as submitted.
So, did any opening comments? We've got some things that have developed. I'm sorry, we had a little bit of a technical glitch here, but we will work through those. I've got a bunch of documents in my attic right now. There's Pete. So we'll have to figure out how to get through those and then figure out where to store them more permanently until we figure out. So that's the latest. Okay, now we can start. Minutes. Alan submitted a set of minutes. We also have some revisions. Alan, what were the revisions between the ones that I circulated?
So the revisions were only for to change. I forgot to change out from the template just the planning commission. So it's just in the first two items that it's Dover Municipal Water Task Force rather than planning commission.
Okay. So subject to those, does anyone have any objection to approving the minutes? Because we did just.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
Thank you.
Second.
Hang on. I have a couple of questions in order to get them right. My first question is, we never really did a roll call at the previous meeting, so I don't know all who was there. I pulled as many people as I could out of it. You'll see them all here: Patrick, Richard, Sarah, me, Randy, Dan, Peter, and Diane, who I think are both alternates. I don't know who else there was though. Jeanette?
No,
Jeanette was there. Mike Eldred from the paper.
Yeah.
Yes, Mike Eldred.
And Jim McDivitt.
Right.
Eldred, ELDRED.
Yes,
Is it 2 L's or 1?
1 L.
Okay.
I should know.
You better. You sign his paycheck, right?
I've only worked with the guy for 24 years.
And who is the second?
Jim McDivitt.
McDevitt.
Does he have a professional affiliation or just a member of the
He's a professional meeting goer. He comes to every select board meeting.
That's gonna bite you, Sarah.
He's a professional, keep track of what's going on and
Yeah.
make sure things are done right.
He does.
Making spelling corrections, Diane has 1 N in it.
Thank you. And Jeanette was in there too for a short time, is that right?
I think so.
Sure.
Do we remember, was Jeanette definitely there?
Jeanette was only there to start the meeting and then she left. She only was there to facilitate the
Coordination.
Well, that's why I don't have her, is by the time we were recording it, she wasn't there anymore.
Right. She just hosted the meeting and then handed it over to me. That's how I.
I'm gonna leave her out of it then.
Okay. So subject to those edits, did you have any more, Alan, that you wanted to correct or clarify?
Other than to ask whether there were any task force members not present, which I don't think there were.
Ken was. I think Ken was not there. Ken West.
Oh, right.
He was sleeping.
Okay, that's all I've got then. Other than that, subject to that, are they, does anyone else have anything? So sorry, you go ahead.
7, 8, that's it. Was he there? Yeah, Dan was there. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then today we have everyone here. Everyone is here except for Dan Tomke.
Hold on, can we finish that one first?
Okay. All right. Sorry.
So
we have-
So we have a motion. Can I get a second, or we have a second?
Second.
Seconded it. All right. Any opposition?
Alan, you're all good?
All good?
Hearing no
Okay.
opposition, we'll accept the minutes. We'll assume the minutes as accepted.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
As presented and amended. Okay, moving on to the first substantive item. It's the discussion about the CEDS submission, and Randy has graciously agreed to take point on CEDS submission, and he sent around to everyone some information.
Yes, so what I sent around about 4:30 was a draft of the initial application. And the CEDS stands for Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies. It's basically a list of projects that doesn't get you any money directly, but it does put you sort of at an elevated level if you make the list. It's jointly, Southern Vermont is jointly handled by BDCC in Brattleboro and the Bennington Regional Development Corp in Bennington. And when I was on the CEDS board 6 or 8 years ago, I had a brief, I didn't really get involved with it deeply, but I have a little bit of understanding on it. And then my wife was a project reviewer for one go around. But I did look over her shoulder on some of that stuff, and some of these applications are pretty intensive. So anyway, I decided I would be the one to take it on because I had probably the most experience of any of us with it. That said, I have talked with Adam, who is the executive director of BDCC, Laura Sibilia as well. And they both see us as a preliminary project. So I'm not sure we'll even get on the list this year. That's fine. Adam thought we were probably 6 to 8 months out from being on it. If you look at the multi-page document I sent around, on the front page, they talk about the regional priority project consideration. That's ultimately where we want to get with this. That opens up financing from the Northern Borders Economic Development Group, which is federal funding. So that's what our target goal is going to be. We're going to be a ways away from that, but we know we've got a timeline of 3 to 4 years, maybe 5 years before we get to the funding stage. So this is something that's a long-term play, but it's in our best interest to do it. So what I sent around, the multi-page document, is a draft of our submission. Patrick actually did most of the work on this. I can't take credit for it, even though my name's on it. So please give it a quick look, see if there's anything you want to add to it. This is really sort of the toe in the water, the foot in the door, if you will. And it has to be submitted by the 15th. So I'm anticipating doing it at the end of this week. Just clicking send on it, and then we'll go from there. And the second document is sort of just a rough overview of the framework, what they look for, the objectives, and we meet one of the categories in pretty much all of these objectives as checked off on the multi-page document. So again, I don't want to belabor it. Most of you are going to be coming at this from not having any knowledge of it, and that's fine. Just give it a look over, see if there's anything that jumps out at you that we might want to add to it. And we're in the early phase, so, you know, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, great. Anybody have questions for Randy about that, the CEDS process or the application? So the one question I have is, I thought I had heard from Laura Sibilia that it was a good idea to submit this, even where we were in terms of our stage.
Correct.
Okay.
And Adam Gernald said basically the same thing.
Okay.
It sets us up for the future.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Plus it gives us experience doing it.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, they do these every year, so they'll come back around.
Hey, if I could, I'm really sorry, I'm gonna leave. So I do have a couple file draws that have some of the water information, some of the older studies that predate the most current one. Some go back to the 80s.
Okay.
So I can empty out 3 file draws probably for you. And if we're gonna use this as a meeting spot, that probably would be a good spot to put it.
Okay.
So that it's always available if we, if we
Okay.
want to refer back to it.
Yeah.
So if you want to grab the boxes sometime and just give me a call, we'll meet down here and we'll figure out what draws are. And then at the next meeting, we can show everybody in the committee so that they can come in and get it.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's better that it's here than in my book.
Yeah.
Town records at my house. It's just not a thing.
So I'm really sorry, everybody, and I did not write this down. And so now I've got it. I'll put it on the calendar and we'll make sure I make
Okay.
everyone.
In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I'll make sure we log up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so unless there's any other questions about the said submission, we can move on to the next item, which I think probably.
Patrick,
Yes,
Alan has his hand up.
Alan, go ahead. Sorry. It's a long
As-
way away from me in the room. I can't see it.
Mhm.
As you can expect, I just wanted to get a roll call before we go any further, since we've already lost one.
Right. Okay, so we have everyone here who was on your list except for Dan. Dan Tomke is the only member, and then Rich just left. at 5:27,
And no members of the public.
and no members of the public. Yeah. And actually, before we get off of that, I want to ask the question here. I mean, Rich graciously volunteered that we could use this space for this meeting. Does anyone have an opinion on using this versus the town office as our meeting, either way?
Fine.
Okay,
I think it's great.
I might bring another camera that's a little bigger next time, so we don't have to put it over there. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next item then, item number 5 on the agenda, which is a discussion regarding the RFQ, RFP needs. So the first big task for us is to engage an engineering firm to do the feasibility study. Since we met last, I put together an email outlining kind of a few things that I had done and some things that I think that Randy had done. Between the two of us, I met with Lance Phelps, who was the lead engineer at Phelps Engineering that did the feasibility study last time. That's where I got those 2 boxes of documents. His insight was good, and then he gave some history as to, you know, kind of the process of what happened last time. I think significantly, he asked, he noted that they actually had gone through a competitive process last time. It wasn't just, you know, it was awarded. And then so based on that discussion and the discussion I had with Sarah, I followed up with the town attorney. I'm forgetting the name. It's Rue is the last name.
Dave Rue.
Dave Rue, right. I spoke with Dave Rue. Dave pointed me to a town policy on procurement and purchasing that requires, you know, in the range of what we're talking about spending based upon the budget here, we actually have to go through a competitive process, you know, to try to solicit, I believe it's at least 3 bids, unless the select board waives that, which is possible. And Sarah, you can maybe shed some insight as to how the select board thinks about such things.
Probably not going to waive it.
Okay. All right.
Is this committee a subcommittee of the select board?
No, this is a separately appointed committee.
But we are charged by the select board.
So you charge-
So we're bound by the policy.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, and the town would be contracting, not this body, so the town would contract with the engineer, so that would be that. So it's just our rule of management, whole thing, so. So in my discussions then with Lance Phelps, I talked to him that we had received and had some conversations and received kind of a framework of a scope of work from one of his former colleagues, John Ashley at D&K. He also shared that there was another firm, Otter Creek Engineering, and then some other firms he suggested. He just rattled off all the names. He said he is not doing this work anymore. He no longer has the engineering license to do the work. So he suggested that, you know, we do whatever process we need to do. He was comfortable with all of the firms that we mentioned, and said, you know, if he had any questions or we wanted him to come down and speak to us about anything, he was totally happy to do that. So that's what sharing that about Lance and how that connects. So I guess based upon that, our next step is we need to begin the RFP, RFQ process. I have to admit, I have no idea where to start with this. Sarah?
We have some money that the town has already allocated. We may want to hire, I can't remember his name now, the guy from Wyndham Regional who helped us with the town plan.
Oh,
Matthew.
Matt Bockler? Yeah.
Yes, and ask him if he has either some boilerplate RFP, RQPs that we could borrow, or if he could help us develop one.
Okay.
Because he would know the right things to include and.
Okay. Yeah, he has offered to help us with this generally, so I can ask him that question. Go ahead, Alan.
Alan's got his hand up too.
So the RFP process doesn't change much, and since it went out for bid last time, there's probably the entire template right there in your stack of documents. Just to save some money, we should be able to do something with it.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's 2 boxes.
Mhm.
Well, we can spread it out right here and go.
Yeah, I did ask Jeanette if she had a copy of anything like that from last time, and they were not able to locate it over at the office. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
It might be
just,
in here.
It might be, yeah, in one of these places. So,
Or depending on, what's his name? Lance, did you say?
Lance Phelps?
Mhm.
Lance may have access to it or may be able to say, hey, it's in the first 3 inches of box 1, you know?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
There's,
Okay.
there's one or more towns ahead of us on this, right? Could we get a copy of what they sent out?
We can certainly ask.
Yeah.
We could talk to the guy.
Could be one copy,
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
so.
That's good
He's been
too.
pretty helpful.
Sarah, would it make sense to have a quick discussion with the select board at your next meeting? Just to say, do you want us to go through the RFP process? Are you comfortable waiving the process, or do you feel strongly that we should just commit to the
Well,
RFP?
I would suggest you speak to the chair of the select board and ask her what she thinks.
You know, she's not gonna answer that on her own.
I think,
We're gonna go through this for the next 5 years, because it's so out of here right now, okay?
I mean, I can't speak for the whole board, but I can't imagine that something of this magnitude that they're not gonna want to do the RFP process. Because, you know, we get into trouble if we, when these processes aren't handled in a really transparent way.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. I think on something of this magnitude and this significant, and given the history of this,
Mm.
starting from point A to where we are now, the transparent, we've got to be uber transparent about everything.
Yeah,
Especially since.
I mean,
we go.
what I could suggest possibly is that we say, is we reach out and get some information about getting the RFP written.
Yep.
And in a parallel track, go to the select board and say, we are going to be starting the RFP process. And we'll present you with the final document as soon as it's available. And if somebody says, well, we don't need to do an RFP, you can just go straight ahead with who you already used, and the board votes on it, that's fine. But
Well-
I don't think that's gonna happen.
well, but that's sort of what prompted this money allocation in the first place, was because there was a study out there, and wasn't the discussion that, hey, let's find out how much we need to buff this up. I'm
Mhm.
phrasing it here. So we are in essence throwing a 90-degree curve in here by saying we need to go back to the RFP process.
Mm.
And I'm not wed to one or the other. I just think we need to go to the select board sooner rather than later.
Well, and it could be that, yeah, I think Alan raised this last time, unless you ask the question, you don't know whether, you know, the quote that we got was reasonable or not.
Right.
I mean, you know, that's.
And Alan's point is very well taken, I think. Again, I'm just saying, I don't want anybody on the select board to be surprised that all of a sudden we're shifting gears to the RFP process. Because I think of a couple of people who might, if we just start.
Well, I think what happens when people who may be resistant to the RFP process are people who are trying to see how fast that we get this done quickly,
Correct,
right?
correct.
And I think, I mean, but the downside of not doing the RFP in terms of transparency,
Oh,
I think
yes.
is huge. Now, well, there's a select board meeting next Tuesday. So, I mean, I'm not adamant that we not involve the select board first. I just don't know if we have to. But why don't we ask Jeanette to put us on the agenda, to put Patrick on the agenda for Tuesday night to say, this is the direction we're going.
Right. And
We're not gonna have an RFP written by next Tuesday anyway.
No,
Right.
I think it's even less, I think it's not even the direction we're going. I think that the way we present it is, this is what the town attorney suggested we do.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, right. That's it. I agree with you. And-
absolutely, yeah,
and
I
in
think you're
terms
right,
of-
Randy.
And in terms of the RFP, RFQ process or preparing whatever package we need to prepare, actually Eric volunteered that I guess he had probably been through this and may have some templates we can use to start with. So.
Eric has done a bunch of the RFPs for economic development. He wasn't with the town the last time around.
No.
No, he wasn't, but I'm just thinking about, I don't even know like a template to start with here. So it's like, I mean, I don't know if the fire district has things that they've
Yeah,
done.
well, I think Alan's point is well taken, is, start with what we already have and see if it's sitting in there
Yeah,
somewhere.
Hmm.
I just want to make sure you guys know that, all of these RFPs are public, usually, almost always.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Berlin's is gonna be up on their website, Killington's gonna be up on their website. We're not reinventing any wheels here.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, and I think the thing that'll be interesting for us is that we're asking specifically for an update of a pre-existing study. We're not asking for a start from scratch.
Good point.
So
The
that
RFP will change.
the RFP will be different than last time, but that doesn't mean last time wasn't a fair starting point. It also doesn't mean like the preliminary scope we got from John Ashley wouldn't work as a framework for that either. We have that
Want to go through those boxes?
so let me go through the boxes. Since I have the boxes, I'll take on the responsibility to go through the boxes.
And so said boxes are here.
Yeah, right. Those are boxes. Okay, those were all good suggestions, and then I'll reach out to Matt and have a conversation with Eric, and we'll go from there. Sarah, I know you went to, it's related to this topic. You went to the town fair
Town fair last week.
and
I met with the people from
Right.
Killington.
Yeah.
I left all my notes at my house. But I did get a lot of good information. We were talking about how they organized it, and they have so much capacity that they don't need to limit the number of people who sign up. Berlin had a limited capacity, and that was one of the things they were using for people when they were trying to get people to sign up, was if you don't sign up now, you might not be able to, because we're only going to be able to accommodate X number of users.
Right.
Killington isn't really going to encounter that issue, but they said, we're telling people we don't know. Like if we get a massive influx, we might not be able to, but they are just about at groundbreaking, I think. And we talked a bit about how to do the public presentations in terms of, how do you get, because I think a lot of times you have people saying, well, I really like my water. Why do I need to get, and which is what I said to the guy at Killington. I was like, I have really good water. I don't personally want to go on the water system. And he's like, well, how do you know you have good water? You don't know. Just because it tastes good doesn't mean it's good water. And so there's a lot about, informing people about testing, water testing, and making sure that you do in fact have the good water you think you have, kind of thing. I had a family emergency last week. I was not able to get anything organized after Wednesday, but I will go back over my notes and summarize them and send them out to everybody.
Okay, great. And if you think it merits a discussion, Sarah, we can put that on the agenda for the next meeting to have more of a discussion about.
Okay. I think it's going to be more informative as we move on with the process of having some of the ways that other towns dealt with resistance or pushback.
Yeah.
I think that was a lot of what I was trying to get.
And one of the things, Sarah, is that maybe if more people knew, the state will, and it's a cost, but the state will do the water testing for you. When I put the well up in Searsburg, I had it tested every year, just to be sure. So I think a lot of people aren't aware that it's not that hard to get their water tested.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't much. It wasn't that much.
And that's for everything.
Yeah, and they did soup to nuts on it. Yeah. So, I mean, if people knew it, they might test more frequently and find out that they don't have good water. And I think that's an excellent point. And that might, if we could somehow let people know that prior to doing the survey, people might say, oh, I thought my water was good, but it's not. Therefore, yes, I do want it. It might actually change the number of people who say they want to know.
Well, and
I would.
go ahead. Sorry.
I wouldn't want to put too much of a fear factor in, but you could open it by talking about the radon issues down at 7-Eleven and that whole area that has bad water. Although people didn't really taste any difference. Use that as an example of this is how you do the testing, because I know testing, they send you a big box like this big. You
You
open it
gotta
up,
read
and it's all pretty self-explanatory. You just have to get it to Brattleboro before like 11 o'clock of the day that you do it. Okay, because the turnaround is has to be very quick. That's it.
So this actually leads to kind of our next item, which is a public outreach plan. And I know we put it on here because I think one of the things that will end up being high on our list is open communication. We want everyone to know what we're doing, to know what we're thinking. We want to be able to take in comments and communicate out what's going on very effectively. So I think some of that falls into the scope of whoever we hire as an engineering consultants. And I did get some comments from Lance that we can feed into that when we go into considering the firm we select. He two of the firms that he said would probably be participants in the process. They have strengths and weaknesses in these areas. The individuals involved both have strengths and weaknesses. He knows the people because they all used to work for him. So he had a very good insight in that. So as we get along in that process, we can talk some more about that, or we can talk offline about that, because I don't, that's a different line of discussion. But I think that one of the points that I thought was interesting from last time, and I don't have a strong opinion on this, he pointed out that I guess the town had actually hired someone to coordinate the public communication of some of the work done by the engineering firm in the feasibility study. And I don't know who or what we may want to hire, but I'm merely sharing that because he gave me the name of this person. I'm not sure we want to use them. We may or may not, but that was something else that was in the mix last time. Sarah, do you have any recollection of that, or?
I'm sorry, I've been trying to find RFPs online or while you've been talking.
Do you know there was a it was not a PR consultant, but there was a communications specialist of some sort that the town supposedly hired as part of this process last time?
I don't have any recollection on that, no. Probably in one of those boxes.
Yeah, well, I have the name. I know the names in the boxes because he pulled out a folder, showed me the name, and stuck it back in the box. So I knew.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Everything's in those boxes. Anyway, Randy, go ahead.
One of the things we did with the school consolidation study group was we had the consultant to lead us through the study process, and then we hired a freelance writer as a communications person, and I think that worked really well. So when we get to that point and we start talking about money and budgeting, we're going to have some money set aside for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Just I think it's really important that we do that.
Well, I think that to that point, almost from the beginning, we've been fortunate enough in that we've been able to have reporting in the news of the start of the effort. But as we go through, there are going to be points where we're going to have the public meetings or public discussions or the like that we're going to need to make sure people are aware of them. Can they come? Can they express their opinions? Right. Things like that.
Definitely.
Does anyone else have any suggestions or pain points or worries or things they want to say about the communications plan at this stage?
Well, I think that if we get the right company for the study, they're going to have done this before and they're going to have hit those pain points before and be prepared for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think that we have to reinvent the wheel as much because we're going to be hiring somebody who's going to have that capability.
We just want to make sure, and that's why I think we need to keep an open mind about a third party, because engineers might be great at doing groundwater studies, but they may not be good about writing a press release or, managing a public information meeting. So I just think we want to be open-minded about that.
Without matching any names to any individuals, one of the things I did hear from Lance with one concern is at least one of the people involved in in this kind of preliminary information is great, detailed, and doing the analysis and developing the supporting information, but may not be the strongest person to stand up in town. So we need to be mindful.
The Venn diagram of engineers and good with public communications like this.
Hey, my kid's
Sorry
an
for the
engineer.
engineers. Sorry.
There's
for the
this, there's
engineers.
a touch point.
There may be an occasional tangent, yeah.
I'm glad you caught my drift without me actually saying that.
I also think that engineers know that they're not good communicators, and so they hire people who are.
Yeah, right. So we'll have to be aware of that, and I think that's when we actually start considering who to contract with. That'll be something we can press on when this group considers, when we get to that point of the process. So, okay, that is the last item I have for tonight's agenda, unless anyone else has anything else they wanted to bring up this evening. Okay, so then the mission then between now and the next meeting, I'll get through the boxes. I will reach out to Matt Bachler at Wyndham Regional, and I'll try to get down and see Eric, or maybe could I ask Diane, can I ask you to communicate with Eric and talk to him a little bit about this? We'll talk and catch up offline. And then at the next meeting, we'll at least maybe have an answer from the select board on what the perspective is on the RFQ process, and we'll have done some work so we can really kind of focus on that as a discussion item at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I'll complete the CEDS application. As I said, I'll remind everybody again, please take a quick look at that. If you have any feedback, please get it to me before Friday afternoon. I'll probably get sent on that Friday afternoon or Saturday.
Great. Any other comments, questions, or anything? Great. It is 5:50 p.m. May I ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All right.
All right.
Any objection to adjournment? If there is none, we stand adjourned at 5:50. Thank you.
you don't get to object. If there's a motion and a second, it's a done deal.
It's a done deal? All right.
Yeah,
Well, I thought
you can shorten meetings considerably.
What, you don't think we want to sit here for a long time?
Well, yeah, but not in the meeting. You don't want to be recorded for a long time.
Yeah, right. Okay. I'm going to turn the recording
All
off.
right. Thanks, everybody.
And
Good night.
we'll meet back here in the same location 2 weeks. So have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.